I welcome you all to Gijis Channel. My name is Andrew and I'll be stepping in for Gigi today. The subject we want to cover today is UFT, Unified Functional Testing, a software created by HP. And the topic we want to cover today is DDF, Data Driven Framework. And what is Data Driven Framework? It is a framework which is driven by different combination of input and output data. And now you might ask, where would we get this data? It could be an Excel sheet, a data sheet, Access, database software such as SQL, and many other different ways we could get this. And for today, the site that I'll be using is 500px. And I'm just going to show you the site real quickly. It's a site where users could upload pictures, images, and anybody could purchase it. Or you could, search for different imagery, whatever topics, photos, locations you would want. And for today, for this testing purposes, the software I'll be using is UFT trial version 12. And the browser I will be using is Chrome version 33. Now you might ask, why am I using Chrome version 33? Because it is fully compatible with UFT trial version 12. There are many, of course, new Chrome versions out there, but they're not all compatible with UFT, especially trial version 12. Now, before we get started, if you do enjoy our videos and if you do like this one also, please subscribe at youtube.com/@home-tuition. Or if you want daily updates, you could visit our Facebook page at Gijis Channel. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please leave it at the comment section below. Now, before we get started, I want to manually walk through what we're going to do today. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to write codes that will open up this, go to a Chrome browser, open up this web page. And then what we're going to do is, as you can see, we have different topics we could search here. And that data would be pulled from this Excel sheet. And I have written a few different values here. As you can see, America, China, dog, cat. I mean, it's random things I just made up. And when you search it here, let's just say one of the topics I said was America. And when you search America, it gives us all the images that are related to America. And that is on this website. And as you can see, it gives us a number right here, 129,453. America photos. So what we want to do is we want to take this number that we see here and we want to input that value into this result count. So basically we're going to ask the code we're going to write is going to say, go through these rows of data that you see here, and wherever it says execute, wherever you see a Y there, please search that topic, and the result you get, how many it is, leave it here. Write it, input it into the Excel sheet, and then say if it passed or failed, if the code worked or if the code failed or not. So that is our main goal. That is our main purpose. And we're going to be using reusable functions. So these functions could be used for other sites also. Let's say if you want to practice, just on other random sites. There's no particular reason I chose this site. It's just a random site that one of my friends and I just practiced on. Okay, so when we open up UFT, it will bring you to this action page you see up here. Of course, it would be blank. These are the codes that I have written to show you guys. And basically, this is where the core of your code will go that you write. What you're going to exactly tell UFT what you want to do basically here. But since I'm going to be using functions, as my base, as my core, what I did was I will go to File and I will go New and I will say New Functions Library. And of course, then it will ask you to name your functions library, and this page will open up. Of course, it would be blank. again, but these are the functions that I wrote that you see here. Okay. One main thing that you want to get in the habit of doing right away is you want to go to Files, Settings, and you always want to associate your library with your action. So you would go to Settings, you will go to Resources, and you will click on this plus sign here, and you will choose the library, whatever you saved it, before the file you saved it, and then you would just hit Apply. So that way, when you call the functions that I've written on the previous in the functions library, like launch site, for example, here, you will know to go look into that function library that you associated with it. Otherwise, it would have no clue, and of course, your test won't work. So the first thing we want to do here is, let's start from the beginning. We'll start from step by step. Of course, the first thing we would always like to do is we want to make sure there's no other browsers open. So if there's a Chrome open, we're going to tell the system to close it down, open up a new Chrome, go to this website, and then what we would like to do is we want to make sure we're at the correct website. You don't want to Google for gmail.com and end up on Yahoo or something. You don't want to. So you want to make sure you're at the correct site. So what are we going to do is we're going to create a function where it also puts a checkpoint to make sure we're at the correct site. And one of the unique things that when you choose a checkpoint, you want to choose something that's unique, that you would see no matter what page you go to on that website. And on this site that you see is this black bar right here that has the site name on it and different links up here. So that's in this example, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be choosing this black box that you see right here as my checkpoint. So that was just me manually saying it. So when you write it in a code, and I'm going to call my first function launch site. This could be whatever it is. And then, you have your variables inside it. So the first thing I'm going to do is system util. Of course, this is a function that's already embedded into UFT, the system util, and I'm going to say close process by name. So what process am I going to close? And I'm going to, I'm going to say browser. I want you to close this browser. And for this example, it would be Chrome. Then I'm going to tell the system util.run. Now go open up this browser and go to this URL. What do you see here? BR and URL, these are just variables that I created. It doesn't have to be BR. It doesn't have to be URL. It could be whatever you want. You could call it fully browser. You could call it web page or whatever you want. So after I do that, I'm going to tell this thing, remember we want to verify it. And I'm going to say if browser dot page dot the class, what is the object that I'm looking for? And if you do an object spy on this web page that you see right here, on that black bar, you'll notice that what we're going to get is it is a web element. So I'm going to try object spying on here. And what do you see here? That black box is a web element. I'm going to click on it so we could get a clear clear, you could see all the properties. So the class name of this object is web element, and that's what I put here. So I'm going to say go find this web element and the value inside, or the properties inside. A web element has certain properties. You could see ABS, X, class, height, HTML, ID, HTML tags. These are all different properties that make up an object. So I'm going to say go find this web element that has this property where the class name is equal to wrapper clear fix. And that's what I put here. And if this exists, if this black box that we saw on that page exists, then reporter.report event that the correct website launched. If it does not exist, we're going to say incorrect website launched. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to, we're going to take it function at a time. So I'm going to run the first function we have here. So if the function does exactly what we asked it to, You could see a Chrome is already open. It should close this Chrome. It should open up a new Chrome browser, and it should go to the website that you see here, this web address. So let's run this test from here, this step, and we'll see what it does. As you could see, the Chrome is still open. So the first thing it did was it would close to that Chrome, and it opened up another browser, another Chrome browser, and inputted the web address. And now we're back at that same page again. Excellent. This did exactly what we asked it to do. Now, as you notice here, we asked it to do one more thing. We asked it to verify, did it come on the correct website? So if I go back to my last run results, and if I look up at the results, we told the system to report it. As you can see, there's a green check mark. That means everything went exactly how we wanted it to. And you could see right here, it says correct website launched. Great. So now what do we do? What is the next step that we want to do? So we're at this website. It's open. Now, as you could see, we want to input the data. No matter whatever we're searching, right here where the blinker, is blinking right here, where the cursor is blinking. That's where we want to input the value. So now we want to know what is that object, so we could determine what it is, how to go about it. As you could see up above, the black bar was a web element. Now we want to know what is the properties of this object that we see right here. So the first thing we would do is, we will write a function. And in this function, let's bring this up. And in this function, I called this function WB value. As before, you could call it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. And in this one, I'm going to do a set of disk. What is, something I created is object description, which is equal to description.create. Instead of hard coding it, I'm going to make this all into a variable, so we could use these functions multiple times if we want, or we could, these are called reusable functions if we want to reuse it again. And what I'm going to say is, I want you to go find an object on this page that has, this name, and I'm going to give it the name of it. So of course, when we do spy that object, we'll find out. So we're going to say, and we're going to set that as an object. So I'm going to say set my object is equal to browser title, which is a regular thing for everything we will write, dot page, and dot web edit. So I'm going to say go find all the web edits that are on this page. But then inside it, I'm going to tell it, the description of that object, that the one that we're looking for. So if I, go back to this page, let's maximize it so we all could see it. So I'm going to go to Chrome, and then let's spy that page. Let's spy that section where we, want to input the value, which is right here. And as you could see, when you look at the properties, you see that this is a web edit. And that is why you see that I put a web edit right here, dot web edit. So I'm going to say, when you go to this web edit, then what property are we telling the system to look? We're telling the system to look for the name property. So it's going to, go scroll down. Let's find the name. And the name is, the name is called web edit also. So now what we're telling the system is go to this page, find this object with the description that has the name web edit. And if this exists, then set my object as blank. Now you'll say, why did I do that? Why do you want to set it as blank? Because I'm going to close this right here. Because what I meant by blank is, if I were to search a topic, as you can see, I searched America. Now let's say I wanted to search India. So if I come back here to search, if I click on this again, as you can see, the America is still there. It didn't go away. So if I were to search for India, it would see India, America. Those are two different words that we're searching for. So it doesn't make sense. So by putting this code right here, set it is equal to blank. So basically we're telling the system is to clear it out. Whatever is there, clear that out first. Then I want you to set a value there. Then set a value. And like I said before, these are reusable functions. We're not hard coding anything. So I'm just going to declare a variable there called input value. And I'm going to, put it back up top. So when I call the functions, it's going to look for two things. It's going to look for the name of the web edit object that I'm looking for. Then what I want to set inside that object. So let's go to our function, our action. And now this time I'm going to uncomment this. And I call the function here, WB value. That was the name of my function. If you want to double check again here, WB value. And I'm going to remember when we did the web, what do you call it up here? The object spy. We knew the name of this object was called web edit. And what I want to search is I want to search soccer. That is the term that I'm looking to search because that's the input value. So as so it did the first step. So we're already at the page that we want it to be. Now we're going to tell it to input soccer where the cursor is blinking. So let's run the second step here. And I'm going to say run from this step. And what it should do is it should go and set soccer on where the page is open. As you could see, it set soccer there. I'm going to go back to the Chrome browser so you could see it set soccer there. Because now what do we do? And as you can see before, you'll see, would have seen images, populate already, but we haven't clicked the search button yet. The search button is the little magnifying glass that you hear. So that's our next step that we want to do is we want to know what is the name of this object. What is the name of it? And then we're going to write a function for that to click whatever this is, this magnifying glass right here is. We want it to be able to click on it. So let's go back to our functions library and we're going to create another function. And this time I'm going to name it web element. And for this object, and we're going to create an object here, and same as before. And this time we're going to, when we tell the system to go look for it, we're going to ask to identify this object by the class. That's why you see ODisk and then quotations class dot value. And then we're going to give the name of the class that it should look for. But the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to find out if it's an element, if it's a web edit, or if it's a web button, what it is. And as before, first thing we will do is we will object spy it. So I'm going to click on object spy here. And I'm going to take it to the magnifying glass right there. That's what we want. And I'm going to click on it. And what do I see? What is that? That is a web element. That is how this object is identified. The class name of this object is a web element. So I'm going to put here. So we're going to tell the system, go find all the web elements that are there. All the objects, that has the class name web element, but in particular, look for that has this as class. So the class name is web elements, is going to look for it, but the description is going to look for is class, and it's going to look for search icon. And we're going to say, and we're going to set that to an object. So when it finds it, it says if my object, the object that we created, this object that we just spied, if it exists, then we're going to tell it my object.click. We're going to tell it to click on it. So, and how do we find how this object is? We're going to tell it to look for the class that has the value of search icon. So I'm going to close this, and I have already written the code here. Of course, this one function was called WB element, web element. Again, these are names that you make up as you go, however easy it makes you to understand it. So I'm going to uncomment this. And when I call this function, as you could see, the name of that magnifying glass, not the name, I'm sorry, the class to identify this was the value of that property was search icon. So now when we run this function, it should find the object web element with the class as search icon, and it should click on it. So we're going to tell the system to run from this step. And as you could see, it's running. So, and it clicked on it. How do we know it clicked on it? You could see all the images that is associated with soccer is shown now. As you could see, there's 22,709 soccer photos. Okay, so now what do we do? So we basically did the first, the main things. We launched the browser, we went to the website, we found where to search for it, then we hit the search button, and now we have this random, we have a whole list of data of all the images and how many total images there are. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to find the count of the images, and then we want to take that count and put it back into Excel. And now one unique thing you would see, and now we want to know, where does it show the count? A count is shown right here, and that itself is an object. So what we want to do is we want to write a function that finds this value right here, that identifies this right here. So I'm going to call this function is going to be called a val count. And as before, I will create a description for it, for this object. And as you can see here, this time I asked to find, I put two descriptions in, where before I only put one description in. And, and this is not something, you have to do, but I did it to, to make it easier to identify the object. Of course, the more descriptions you give, the easier it makes it to identify the object. So this time I'm going to ask when it finds the element, or this thing right here, the 22,700 soccer photos, when it finds that, it's going to identify that by the string, the class, and the HTML tag. So when you do objects by, one thing you will see is, by that right there, you will notice that this is a web element also. Okay, let me move this to the side here. So you could see this is a web element also. Now what are we looking for in this element? We are looking for the total of the search result, how many there are. So let's look at the different properties and try to identify where it shows the value with the total count. I could see it in inner HTML, I see it in inner text, and I see it in outer text. But the one thing I see is, it tells you 22,709 soccer photos. I mean, I already know I'm searching for soccer photos, so I don't need it to repeatedly say it again, soccer photos. All I'm looking for is the number by itself. So how can we get the number by itself? There's a function already built into UFT that is called a split function. So we could tell the system, hey, wherever you see a space, or wherever you see a dash or a comma, you could split it. So one thing I want to do right here is 22,709. That's what we want. So what is after that? I see a space there. Then you see soccer. Then you see space there, photo. So I notice that if I tell the system to split it wherever there's a space, this space right here, then I could get this number by itself. And one thing you have to remember when you do a split function, when you run a split function, is the results are always displayed in arrays. So, and as you know, if you've done previous scripting, that arrays always start at 0. So this 22,709 would be 0, array of 0. The soccer would be, array of 1, and photos would have been array of 2 if we're asking to split wherever there is a space. So I'm going to write a code, and I'm going to say declare that into a variable result. So the result itself would have a value. So we would say browser, of course, .page .web element. That's what this is up here. And I want you to go to this web element that has these two descriptions, class and HTML. And we're going to, when we call the functions, we'll say Okay, go find the element that has what is it, class result count and HTML tag div right here. Go find this object. And what do I do with this object? I'm going to tell it to get the RO property. That is all the properties you listed here: class name, height, HTML ID, HTML tag, inner HTML. And I'm going to go tell it to find the inner text, which is the 22,709 soccer photos. And I want you to take this value and send it, make that equal to result. So if I had, if you're doing this yourself at home, you could just put another code of line right here and just say message box result. And it should say 22,709 soccer photos. So now I'm going to write the next set of codes right here, which is I'm going to use the split function. Let me close this out here. So then I'm going to say, go find the result here, and wherever you see a space, that's where I want you to split. And as you can see, split is a function that's already in it because actually it's blue, it's colored blue there. So when I do it, then it's going to, of course, split it into 3 because that's where the spaces are. And array result is going to be equal to the 3 results. And but what we want just the number. So array result is going to be equal to 0. We want just that first one, the first value, and that value is going to be equal to our count. For this purpose, I'm just going to put message box, and I'm going to put our count. So you could actually, I'll put the message box up here too, so you could see the difference of how it was before using the split function and how it was after using the split function. So I'm going to put a message box result here. So what it should do is it should pop up a message box first telling you, 22,000 whatever soccer photos. And when we get to the next message box, you should only see the number itself. And right now we're not returning anything yet. We're not returning it, so I'm just going to comment that out. So let's try running this function right here. And I'm going to tell it to run from this step and see what it does. So it's going to go find that number. And as you can see, 22,709 soccer photos. But that's what we don't want to know. We already know we searched for soccer, so we don't need to have that also. We just want the number itself. So then we did the split function, and the second message box it should display should be just the number, and that is exactly what we got. And now it should end it, and it did great. So then now what do we want to do? And of course, I'm going to uncomment this because we're going to run it later on, and I'm going to comment the to message box because we don't want it to pop up every time. We just want that value to go into the Excel sheet. Now you'll say, why am I returning it back to the name of the function? Whenever you want to return a value that's inside a function, that you want to use it back in your actions or wherever, you always want to make your function equal to that value. So we're going to tell the system, whatever our count is, take that value and put it back into the function. So when whenever the function is used outside this page, in the action 1, or excuse me, if you have action 2, it will, that val count now will hold that value of that R count. Now there's a couple more functions I want to review before we actually write the full code, and that is verify. So one thing we want to do is we want to verify that when we're searching for dogs, that we're getting, the search results say dogs also. When you search for cat, you don't want to get dog results. Or when you search for dogs, you don't want tiger, let's just say. You want to make sure so we're going to make a function to verify it. So what we're going to do is, how are we going to verify? So we're going to say up here, whenever we're searching for soccer up here, it should say soccer down here also. So it's a very simple function. That is, again, we're going to use two descriptions to find it. We're going to ask it to find the class and the tag. Basically, we're using the exact same thing as before. But before, we just wanted the number itself. We're going to say this time, if whatever we're searching for, if that element exists down here, if it does exist, then that means, hey, the object exists, that's what we wanted, it is verify is equal to true. If it does not exist, then verify this function will be equal to false. Again, just like before up here, guys, we are returning a value here. We're saying if everything goes, if the correct images are displayed, that means it's equal to true. If not, then it means equal to false. And the last thing we want to do is we want, of course, to close everything out. I think we want to write a function that just says, systemutil.close process by name. So any Chrome browsers that are open, shut it down, close it up. Now comes the most important part. Now where we write the actual code to run these functions. We don't need these anymore, so I'm just going to delete these out. And, I have already written the codes for you to make it easier, and I'm just going to select all this and Control-Shift-M to uncomment. So what is the first thing we need to do? We need to access our Excel sheet because that's where all the data is. Because the data that we're going to use right here is right here, guys. America, China, dog, cat, Acura, BMW. That's the data I want to search. And this data is in this Excel sheet right here. So now I need to access this data sheet. So what am I going to do? So the easiest way to do this is, of course, use the Excel application that's already built in. So we're going to say set OXL is equal to create object excel.application. So now the system knows that we're going to be using the Excel application. But now we need to tell the system where is the file that you want, where is it located. The easiest way is, if you have the browser open, let's say whatever it is, you want to copy the path. To make it easier, especially if you have Windows 8, you could highlight the file, and if you go to home up here, you could just say copy path, and it will copy the whole entire path of exactly where your file is located. And for me, it's located in the C drive, under these folders, and that's where mine sits. So now system knows to go find the Excel application and then go find this path. And that, we're just declaring that as a variable up here. Path is equal to that because, you don't want to, randomly type it in by hand, then you're going to mess up. I could have easily put this whole path, down here and it would have been fine also. But to make it easily understandable, I made that into a variable. So I'm going to say go to this Excel application and open this workbook under this path. So when you do this, it will open up this Excel worksheet right here. Now, the next step of code is not mandatory that you see right here, oxl.visible equals true. By default, HP has made when you run these applications, they're all by default false. That means when you're running this test, you don't see the Excel sheet open up. But for this example, I want you guys to be able to see, step by step what it's doing. So I made it visible so we will be able to follow along. Now that we have this Excel open, now what do we want to do next? We want to make sure that we are working on the correct sheet. And if you worked on previous Excels, you know that usually it opens up like 3 different sheets, sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. And we want to make sure we're working on the correct sheet. And that is the code that you see right here. We're going to say set object worksheet is equal to the workbook up here dot active workbook dot worksheets 1, which is worksheet number 1. And the next main thing that we need to do is we want to tell what rows, number of rows you want to work on. As you can see in Excel, there is infinite number that it could, you could be sitting in front of a test and it will be running all day. So, but we only want this test to be run wherever there is data, basically rows 1 through 7 in this example. So for that, I'm going to write another code right here, and I'm going to make it RC, which is row count. For this worksheet, only use used range.rows.count. So I'm telling the system only use the rows that are being used right here, 1 through 7. Got it? So there's 7 lines of rows that we're going to use. All right, guys, so now we have the Excel open, we have our functions ready. Now let's put it together so we could run this test. So the first thing we obviously want to do. We want to be able to launch the website. We're going to say launch Chrome. So in the beginning, we opened up the Excel sheet. Excel sheet is good to go. Now we're going to open up Chrome and we're going to go to the website. Now we're going to say, now we're going to find out, what do we need? What is the main thing we need to do? We need to find out what rows that we want to execute and what is the value there. Then find the count, return the count here, and then say if it's passed or failed. Or in this case, cat right here, we put a no. If we did not tell it to execute, it should say skipped right there. So let's look back at the code. It says for I is equal to 2 to row count. So we're telling, as you can see here, the first row is not no values that we need. Those are just the name of each column that we put. So when we tell the system, we're going to say start from row 2 and go to row count. Row count is what we hear, the used range of rows. So we're going to say just work between those two sets of data. So we're going to say only work with from row 2 to row 7. And between these rows, I want you to look at cell I1. So I up here is 2, then column 1. So what is, and in there, if it has a Y, then do this. But if it's not, then it would automatically skip it down here to the else here, and then we'll just put skipped in that 4th column. But if it says Y, then get the value from cells I2. And I'm also, to make it easier to understand, I'm going to make that into a variable also. So search val is equal to the worksheet that's open. Go to cell I is 2, 2, 2, and row is 2. So let's look at the Excel. I, which is the row is 2, and the column 1, 2. So we're saying if it's Y, then choose the column that's there. Choose the value that's there. And in this one, we're gonna take this value and send it to a variable, and we're gonna call that variable search val right here. So when we call the functions, it makes it easier. It makes it easier for you to understand, or if somebody else was looking at this function, it makes it easier for them. So we're gonna say take that value, go to the object that has a web edit, that has the name web edit, and then put the value that you got here, put it there. So that's all we did. We told the thing to pull it from the Excel sheet, send that to a variable, and then then when we call the function, we'll put the variable there. So in this example, since we're asking to search for America, is going to send America to a variable, and when we call that variable inside the functions, it knows to search for America. And then what we want to do is we want to click on the search icon. That is the function. Function VB element means click on it, on the search thing, the magnifying glass right here, to click on it. So then what do? Then we're going to say, wait for a few seconds. As you could see, when we were searching before, you saw the pictures took a little while to load up. So we're going to say wait 3 seconds. Then what we want to do is, we remember that value we returned when we searched for it. We're going to say take that value, which is val count, and I want you to put it in cell I3. What is I? I is still 2 up here, and 3 is the column. So I3 is right here. So we're going to say when you search for America, you're going to see how many total images there are. Take that value and put it right here in result count. And then, of course, the last thing we want to do is we want to verify this function, verify that the correct topic was searched. And we're going to say, and we're going to send that to a value also to a variable called return val. We're going to say when you run this function, if it returns true, that means it passed. Else, that means it's failed. Again, as you can see right here, if it's true, that means the verifying passed. Otherwise, it failed. So basically, just to go through this one more time, we're going to launch of course, what we did first was we created the Excel sheet. We told which Excel sheet to use. When you open up the Excel sheet, which workbook to use. Then, of course, we did the second part, which is launch the website, go to this site, go to the Excel sheet that we created above, find the data in this cell, take the data, search it, and when you get the value, it says input it back into this cell in column 3. And then on the last column, in column 4, you want to say if it passed or failed. And if we did not say Y up above, and if we didn't want it to execute it, then that means it was skipped. And of course, at the end, we want to make sure we close all the browsers that are open. And there are other little things that you could do. You could make sure you set all the Excel sheets that you created up here. You could say set OWS is equal to nothing, set OXL is equal to nothing. So that way it's not creating, no unnecessary memories in your database, obviously. So I'm going to close out this Excel sheet. And I'm going to say, no, don't, actually I could save it. I don't see anything different. And let's run this test. And I'm going to close out this browser also so we could understand it. And we want to see it visibly step by step what it's doing. So I'm going to ask it to run the test. I'm going to save it first just to be on the safe side. Make sure everything is good to go. And all right, it's good. And I'm going to hit run. And let's run this test. And since we made the Excel sheet visible, you should see the Excel sheet open up. As you could so it found the path, and as you see, the Excel sheet opened up. Now we told it to launch the website, and now it should pull each individual data. Since we used the for loop, it should keep on going till the row count ends. We set row count from 2 to row count, which was 7, I believe. So you should go each row one by one and search each result. Then take the number, like America here, 129,000. You should put that value back. Let me just click on this Excel sheet that you could see. As you see, it did America. Of course, it passed. Now it's doing China. And now it's going to take the image count of China, and it should put that back into Excel. And of course, it passed. And it should do each one by one. And once again, I just want to let you guys know that, if you do have any questions, please leave it in the comment section below, and we'll try to reply back as early as possible, as soon as possible, I should say, or whenever we get the chance. Okay, great. So now our test is run. Is doing the last step you can see in the background, and now the test is done running. So let me open up this Excel. Let me expand it, and as you could see, it searched America. It got a value. It got 129,476 images, and it passed. Then it did China. Then it did the dog. But it didn't do cat because we said don't execute that line. And as you could see, the status there is skipped. Then it did Acura. Then it did BMW. So I'm going to go back here And if you look at the test results also, we asked it to make sure it went to the correct website. You should see all greens here also, since we had no issues with it. And of course, if you guys are practicing DDF, there's a lot of multiple things you could add on to here, more verifying points or more checkpoints or even more complicated checkpoints. So now that it's loading up the test results viewer, it should let us know that it passed. It's taking a little longer than usual. Basically, just by looking at the Excel sheet, we got what we were hoping for. So once again, I want to thank you guys all for watching. And like I said, if you do enjoy our videos, or if there's another topic that you want us to cover, please leave it in the comments section below. Please subscribe to us at youtube.com/@home-tuition, or visit our Facebook page for daily updates at Gijis Channel. I thank you all for watching. You have a wonderful day. Bye.